So it was so exciting to meet him, and then to learn that he was really interested in our history and in becoming involved with the community. They held the Freese family reunion at Nora Park, which is on a piece of property that was once owned by the Freese family. So I would like to introduce Kevin, and you can introduce your lovely aunt, who is going to be our speaker.
Thank you, Sam. My name is Kevin Freese. I am the son of John Freese, who is the son of Orland Freese, and we could go all the way on back through the line. Orland was my grandfather. He had 8 kids. The youngest 2 were my dad, the youngest. He stole my aunt's glory as being the baby of the family. My aunt Donna Snyder. She's going to do the majority of the presentation. I think probably all the presentation. I wanted to do a little bit more, but with work and whatnot, I haven't been able to devote enough time that I thought to give you guys what you deserve. And she's done so much research on her family already. So I'm just going to be the guy behind the computer turning the slides for her as she goes. And Donna, will you come up and present for me?
Well, it's my pleasure to be here tonight. I am a direct descendant from Tryphena and Bill Williams, as is Kevin. And Judy Galo,
Yes.
I wanted to tell you that my father always said the name is Freese, as in geese, not Fruce, as in goose. So I will remember your name, Halo.
There you go. I'm so angelic.
Well, I got started checking on the family when, I have to tell you where I'm from. I'm from Orville, Ohio. That is the home of Smith Dairy, Sean's Pipe Organs, that's in a lot of churches, and of course Smuckers, with a name like Smuckers. Okay, when my oldest daughter was born, and she's sitting back there, she came with me tonight. Her name is Sarah, and when she was a little baby, my grandmother Freese came over, and she was a farmer's wife. She was never sentimental. I never saw my grandmother cry. But she leaned over that bassinet and cried, and she said, "Oh, Donna, how nice of you to name your baby after my mother and Grandpa's mother." What? I did not know, but of course I go, "Oh, sure, Grandma." So the first question I ask when they leave is, what is she talking about? So that really started me thinking, how odd, how did I come up with the name Sarah? I didn't know anyone named Sarah, I just liked the name. So, but Sarah Boehner would have been my grandmother's, or my grandfather's grandma, and her mother was also named Sarah. I did a study on both the Freese family and the Lance family. My grandfather, Bert Freese, and he married Willie Juanita Farr Freese. My father's name is Orland Farr Freese. And as I'm sure all of you know, probably somebody who carries the middle name, the first boy of the family carries the middle name as the maiden name of the mother. And so I did both of them, and that's what's in here. I'm going to leave this with you. This will go into your archives. And I started this back in 1987. Okay, and that was before computers. So to gather my information, I made a form, and I took it to every family reunion for 3 years. Gave it to everybody. I mailed it to people that were out of state. and have them fill it out. And if they had children or elders that wouldn't fill one out, have them make another paper and give me all the information you can. And that's how I started. Now, I took a trip to Lee, Massachusetts, and it was the most fun thing I've ever done. Lee, Massachusetts is where our family comes from. I searched in the libraries, I went to the county seat, I spent 2.5 days there. I went to the cemetery, no, not the new one, so I asked someone else. There's got to be an older cemetery. Oh yeah, up on top of the mountain, well, the hill. So I went up there. It was getting close to dark, and the mosquitoes were bad, and it was hot. And I looked and looked and looked and looked, and I couldn't find a Freese anywhere. And I thought, well, I better go. I'll come back tomorrow. And I turned to leave, and the ground is uneven, and I stumbled and grabbed hold of a thin tombstone. And I'm so sweet, I had to go around and say, well, thank you, sir. Freese! It was John Freese! It was the one I was looking for. And then there they all were. And the interesting thing was there were 2 girls that never, one married and the other one didn't. If I can put my hands on their epitaph real fast, it was interesting. The one that was not married, she sounds like an old maid. She says, in death I have no anxious fears. Here I shall rest till Christ appears. His voice will sound through earth and skies and bid the sleeping saints arise. I got him turned around. That was the good one. This is the grumpy one. Here beneath this gloomy stone, I slept in quiet and alone. All you that read will surely see that you must die and sleep with me. Woo! Yeah, I know her. Okay, so then, after we leave there, we find out that John Freese immigrated from my head's just gone. Yeah, from the Netherlands. Thank you. It took 2 months for them to sail all the way to the new colonies. It was in 1670. Now, if any of you are into genealogy, you may have seen that there's a James Freese that's the father of John. I don't believe that to be correct. I found an article that said, with no further information, then he immigrated into Massachusetts and he settled in, where's that, Massachusetts? Okay, there he is. That was him traveling on the ships. Okay.
It's I don't know where it is on the map.
That's
That was
okay.
a map
It was over by Boston.
Yeah.
Right near
Is
the
it
ocean. He settled in Salisbury. Then he moved in a little bit and he met a woman and he married her, and her name was Dorothy Carr. They had 1 child, and her name, his name was Jacob. Believe me, if you think it's confusing, wait till you hear me say, and his name was Jacob, and his name was John, and his name was Jacob, and then he had a John, and then John had a Jacob. Variety in names was not what they went for. Okay, he met then Rebecca Van Loon, their son, Carr and the Freese, the original Freese. They had the 1 son, Jacob. He met and married Rebecca Van Loon, it looks like, but it's really pronounced Loon. Halo. It's the Netherlands way of saying it. Now, it gets interesting because He came into the northern part of Massachusetts and ended up over in the Berkshires on the other side of Massachusetts, on the west side. Berkshires are part of the Appalachian Trail. So he had to go over some serious mountains to settle into Lee, Massachusetts. The Van Loons came from the Netherlands, but they came in through New York Harbor. And there was a group of them, a family, cousins, uncles, aunts, you know, and they all wanted to come and be part of this new country. They came into New York Harbor and went up the Hudson. They went up a ways. They were out of the city, which isn't the city yet, of course. And they settled a town called Lunenburg. That town became named Athens now. So if you look at in a map, partway up the Hudson River, you'll see on the west bank the city of Athens. And that's where the Lunenburgs settled and started that community. I don't know if it's true or not, but I suspect that the Freeses and the Lunenburgs might have known each other in the homeland. Freese came in 1670, and the Lunenburgs arrived in 1675. So once they got settled in their various towns, that's when Jacob came down to Lunenburg and met up with Rebecca von Loon, and they got married in New York City, which wasn't New York City yet. You know what it was named before that? Say it again? New Amsterdam. And sometimes, some of them called it even New Netherlands. And I'm sure that New Amsterdam, I know that it stuck longer. Then it became New York City. So that's where they were married, and then he took her back up the river to the town of Lee. Okay, they had, in 1741, they returned to, when they returned to Lee, they had one son named John. I'm sorry if I sound a little nervous. I am. I'm not a public speaker, so we'll get through this. Okay, so their son, John, married Desiree Williams. Now, John and Desiree Williams Freese, they had 5 children, 2 daughters and 3 boys. The girls, one of them died at a fairly young age, late 20s, maybe early 30s, and did not marry. There's no history about why that is. The other woman did marry and had a family, but she stayed in Lee. Now, the 3 boys that Desiree and John had were the ones that we're really going to focus on this evening. John Freese, have you heard that name before? He married Sally Stearns in 1778. And they were married in Lee. And John was quite an industrious guy. He went to Harvard University, and he also taught in Kinderhook. You may have heard of Kinderhook, and if you haven't, it's near Lee, and it's also the home of Von Buren. What's his first? Martin. Yeah, Martin Von Buren. And so he taught him a class in an academy that he was teaching. John taught the upcoming president. So he was quite a bright man. I believe he's the one that ended up being a judge in this area. Okay, Bill Williams was another son of those three boys that we're going to talk about. And he was born in 1781, or 1780. So that was 3 years after John. He married Sarah Sally Beaumont. Now, Stearns and Beaumont should be names that came to Brunswick. Because once they got here, after the boys were done doing their work, they went back to Lee and got their families and their in-laws, if they liked them, and brought people to Ohio to settle this area. The third one was Abram. He was born in 1786. It's not clear if he married. There's some places I saw he did marry and other places where I didn't. So I don't know clearly on that. But Abram is the one that was hired by your town history has it is hired by the Connecticut Land Company. Some information that I ran across said the Massachusetts Land Company. Either way, they ended up here. Abram was a surveyor, and they asked him to come down into the Western Reserve area. Western Reserve area was land that was set aside as a result of the Revolutionary War. The soldiers didn't get paid anything for fighting in that war. And so the land that was laying west, the government snatched it up, or landowners, people who could afford to would say, this is going to be mine, and I'm going to take care of that. And so this land company had this plot of land. Go to the next one.
I don't know what I have.
Oh, you don't have that one, that's fine. And so it was the Western Reserve. And we know that Moses Cleveland surveyed that area up there. And we don't know exactly how much of this area Abram was in charge of, but his brothers ended up coming along, maybe not at the same time. It just says that in 1811 was when Abram came. And by 1814, the three boys were out of Lee. So that's what we know. It's probable that the boys came, cleared some wilderness, did the surveying, set up plots of land, and then went back to Lee and brought the families. It's amazing to me, just amazing when you stop and think that this was all thick wilderness, Indian territory. I know my uncle and my grandfather found Indian arrowheads everywhere around in the fields here. But there was wild animals, Indians. How did they get here? Horseback, I'm thinking. Maybe if their survey equipment was large, which I don't think was real big like it is now, they might have come with a wagon. Certainly when they brought their families, they had wagons. And so those three boys ended up helping in the survey. Abram became a teacher. John was the judge. And Bill Williams, he had a farm. They all eventually farmed in this area. I know that in Hinckley, there's an Abraham that was responsible for settling a lot of that area. I believe that's a cousin. Abram, sometimes referred to as Abraham, but I haven't seen it. There was an Abraham in this family and Abram in this one. So when you're doing any of your family search, be sure that you watch out for things like that. You gotta make sure that the dates line up. That's why I don't believe that John Freese came from England and his father was James. I don't believe that because the dates don't match up. At some point, he'd have to have been 13 when a woman of 22 had his child. Now, one of the reasons that the Dutch, the Netherlands people, were brought to the new country was because they're mild-mannered. They didn't like conflict. They were somewhat religious, but they had their own way of doing things. And they got along better with the Indians than the Brits did. The Brits like to come in and take over. And so they really encouraged, after 1620 is when the Pilgrims came, and then the Great Migration was 1620 to 1640. That's when they really brought all the ships full of people, good and bad, and brought them to help fill up the land. And fill up they did. Oh my goodness, I thought my dad had a lot of this. They used to ask him at the steel mill if he was Catholic. And he said, no, I'm just a passionate Protestant. So they did have large families, and certainly you could see how the population just bloomed. Okay, now, I'm almost done here. Okay. Let's go back to the Bill Williams Freese, who married Sarah Sally Beaumont. There was a son, Bill Williams. He married Tryphena Tillotson from Brunswick. Tryphena Tillotson's father was Captain Tillotson, and he was from Lee, Massachusetts. So there's another connection. So I don't think they weren't married until they were here, but when her family came, it just added more camaraderie. Another name, or the children that they had were Clara, Daniel Beaumont, Perry Commodore, Henry William, and Ella May. My great-grandfather is Perry. He died on the railroad tracks between Cleveland and Brunswick. He was walking the railroad tracks. He was hard of hearing. We have pictures of him with the big horn to his ear. We don't know that he couldn't hear, because he certainly could have felt the vibrations of a train. So maybe he had imbibed too much, possibly. At any rate, he was killed by the train. There is a story about that somewhere. I think his obituary has the details of it. Okay, now that takes me, we had on here 8 generations, but it was actually 7 generations back. It's where I went from my grandfather, Bert, son of Perry. Now let's see, then there's my father, so that's 8. There's me, 9. There's my daughter, Sarah, 10. She has daughters, 11, and she has grandchildren, and that's 12 generations. And I think that's pretty remarkable. And I'll take a few minutes if you have any questions. And I will happily leave all of this with you. And I have my phone number on here too. So, anything? Say it again. Oh, Clyde was my uncle. Yeah. Did y'all know that Clyde didn't have a thumb? Yeah. When I was little, we were at one of his brother's funerals, and I was tired and getting cranky, and I was one of these, twirling my hair and sucking my thumb. And I was climbing up on Uncle Clyde's lap, and I saw his hand, and I said, Uncle Clyde, what happened to your thumb? He said, I sucked it off. And I was sucking my thumb that day. So, yeah, I come from a pretty jovial family, real pranksters, the men were. The women were quiet until they got to me.
Got a question over here.
Yes, sir. Yeah, ma'am.
I want to give you another connection. My family's from Massachusetts and was in Columbia County, New York, which includes Kinderhook at the same time. And my great whatever went to the Kinderhook Academy. About 1770s, 1780s, whenever you mentioned that.
Oh, wow. Good. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? We're all kindred spirits.
Carol Gannon has relations in all those families. Where are you, Carol?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
There's a real good historian from the Connecticut Western Reserve. His name's Harlan Hatcher. He's dead, but he wrote a book in the late 40s and revised it in like 61. And it's an excellent book on it. And he mentioned that this whole area here, the reason Cleveland's called the Forest City, because it was literally cut out of the forest. And unusually so, others were, but this was really a dense, thick forest. So you're right, they had a heck of a time.
Yeah. The Indians did teach them how to, here's a familiar term from the last few years, how to have a controlled burn. And that would help them clear the not so forested areas. Of course, they wanted to use the good wood to build their cabins and use it for their well-being. But when it came to the meadows and things, then they wanted to get to where the rocks were. They would burn it off and have good farmland. Okay? Yes, sir.
With Clyde, his father, you said that he didn't know if he could hear that.
Yeah.
He could not hear it. Fern and Clyde told me when Fern was ready to leave the house, she had I always called it the music room. She always had 2 doors shut and she had ceilings flying around. And she opened it up and in there was 2 sawhorses and they were like decked, they were carved. And next to it was the horn.
Yeah.
And she told me about that. And Clyde told me about the horses. When his father got hit twice, about 10 years apart, and in 1923, I think he was crossing to visit a neighbor across with his horses, and the horses got spooked, and he couldn't get them across the railroad, and entered and flipped.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, anything else?
Thank you so much.
I thank you for your attention.
I don't know if it was right after coming to one of these first meetings or before that. We had a family reunion out in Wyoming, and it's like, oh, let me get into this and see what's going on. So, and Sam contacted me, so I didn't know this. I'd heard this story of Brunswick before and surveyors. I'm a civil engineer as a profession, so the mapping thing kind of piqued my interest. So when I heard about the surveyors, I was like, well, let's go see. So I went to the cemetery, and these right here, this is Bill Williams Sr.'s gravestone, his wife Sally Sarah, and then his son Bill Williams Jr. in Trifina's gravestone, and then this one is Perry Commodore Freese. His wife and him are there. So that's at least 3 generations that are buried out there. My aunt's grandfather and father were both buried in Springbrook. Another thing I wanted to mention real quick was the Tillotson land. This right here was the captain that came over. I read somewhere, and I can't say this is entirely accurate, but one of the first building structures where I think where there was a residence was at the Tillotson farm, and that's actually now Mapleside Farm.
It is.
So that was kind of,
That's
nice to know that my family history goes back there too. I was looking at where to have a family reunion this past year. And originally I was like, oh, Mapleside, let's have it there. And they wanted a little bit too much money to have it at Mapleside. So we stuck with down off of, you can't really see it because it's blurry here, but off of 303 Neuro Park. There's also land that I believe the original Bill Williams Sr. owned, and then his siblings after him. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is Aunt Donna was talking about John Freese, the one that was the judge, that was the teacher that taught the president. He also he also carved a bed frame, or there's a bed frame that's at the Historical Society now. It was something that he had done with his own hands with Brunswick wood, and it was something that when his family migrated, I don't know if his kids inherited this bed or if he moved himself, they ended up in California, and these people found out about, like, we don't really, need this, and somehow got a hold of the Historical Society and shipped it back to here, and it's in the Historical Society now because it was made with Ohio wood. So those are just a couple other things I wanted to add.
Did they have any, did they know the Burbands that where the farm was at?
What's that?
His family, did they?
The farm, well, Bill Williams Jr. had these two lots of land right here. So this is Substation Road, and then this is, I know it's kind of blurry, but this is Substation Road right here, and this is, I think, Grafton Road, so the very northwest part of Brunswick. And then down on Center Road, on the north side of Center Road, was where Senior had land, and it was Elmina. This map was from 19, I think it was 80, or 1874, or something like that. It was on the.
Wouldn't that be Boston Road at the time?
It could be.
Yeah, it wasn't
It
Grafton.
is Boston.
Okay, it is Boston. Yeah, so that's Boston Road up here. This is Substation Road. Bill Williams there, and then Elmina Summers down. And then Substation Road down here. Uncle Clyde had that land on the south. I don't know, other than what I'm a very map person because of my trade and my profession. So I always look at that, look at historical maps to see where they live. But that's as far as I know. And I looked on, currently there's one of these, I don't believe there's anything built right here in this land. This one is now mostly some smaller houses out here. There's one bigger house in the back of it, but nothing like a big development on that one. Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about it.